get to cylinder one, the intake, you wouldn't have an intake, or you'd have a weak intake pull.
Everything's in the school.
Well, if it wasn't open, you wouldn't have an intake pull for that cylinder. Because the piston would be coming down, it's not pulling on the intake manifold because the valve lifted. So you would have a missing intake pull. Similar to the cam crank correlation, you're finding 720 degrees. In this case, you better see this trace dive down 4 times. You better so the pressure transducer, we go in cylinder, we want an absolute pressure because we want to know what the actual pressure is. We can use an absolute pressure sensor here, it gives a similar trace, but we cannot use this in the cylinder. And you have to see it. This is a pressure, a delta pressure sensor, 2 volts I should say, that should cover 200 psi. We'll turn this on, and this thing will auto-calculate. The moment you turn it on, you watch this and you'll see it kind of come up and down. It may not be, there you go, out of scale, then it goes back down, and eventually it should come really close to 0. And you'll also see the LEDs change when it's doing that. It changes from range 1, range 2, range 3, and then back to range 1. I don't generally use this zoom feature. I know most of you probably don't have this, but if you ever get one, I don't use the zoom feature very much. I use the range and choose the different settings. And that's just about it. That should be, this should be okay. You want to crank it over and see? Stopping our capture, we're going to go to the zoom view, and we could have chosen a wider time, more time on it so we could see what's happening during the event if we wanted to. We're going to bring, I don't know, I don't think you can turn these traces off, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Can you? Trace 1, we can turn off. And then, that's a problem.
Trace 2 is the pressure transducer?
Trace 2 is the pressure transducer. I'm going to turn trace 3 off too. Zoom in. This thing is producing more than 200 psi. Do we want to take another capture so we're seeing all of it? Yes.
How do you know that by looking at the screen?
Basically, you see the top of it's clipped.
Okay.
That's representing top dead center compression, so you're not seeing all of that waveform. It'll come to a peak, and it's being cut off. It's 1 volt per 100 psi. And this is a 2-volt scale, and it's going off beyond 2 volts, meaning it's going to be more than 200 psi.
With that auto range once you move it there?
Once you turn it on, just let it do its thing. It'll auto range and you're done.
All you got to do is adjust it right here.
All you got to do is adjust the scaling so that, and that's the problem with Pico, is that you're forced to adjust the scaling. So that one goes off, but if I choose the next one, then it may make our waveform pretty small. Let's see. What trace was that?
3? Oh, it's
No, it's 2. It's 2. Okay. So at 5 volts, the waveform may look kind of small. Let's try it again. And again, we can choose, it looked like it was 1280 milliseconds in that zoom view, so we could change our sweep speed to be closer to that if we wanted to. This thing's still trying to open a buffer view. your Zeus is tired like me.
Had a good workout today.
All of us did.
And, can't wait to get home and sleep.
Okay,
Right,
move
so
this.
that better.
Move that, and then we'll go, let's see, 64.
That's perfect.
I mean, that's pretty close.
Such a pain in the ass to move this person.
So there's 720 degrees. This is the compression stroke. This is your power or expansion stroke. And then about 180 degrees after the compression stroke is when the exhaust stroke starts. And then it goes all the way to 360 degrees. The exhaust stroke goes from 180 degrees after compression to 360 degrees after, all the way to the middle. And right at the end of the exhaust stroke is, of course, the intake stroke. So the intake valve opens again. So piston's coming up against closed valves. It builds pressure in the cylinder. Now the valves are still closed, but the piston is coming down. Probably about 30 to 60 to 30 to 60 degrees before the 180 mark. The exhaust valve will open. So the exhaust valve opens during the power stroke. It opens before the exhaust stroke. Then the exhaust valve stays open during the entire 180 degree exhaust stroke. At the end of that stroke, the exhaust valve will close and the intake valve open. Then 180 from the 360 degree mark to 540, the intake valve is open, and the intake valve is not closed till about anywhere from 30 to 60 degrees after bottom dead center. Pistons top dead center coming down, bottom dead center. Exhaust valve opens before it comes all the way down to bottom dead center. Exhaust valve's open, now piston comes up. Right in the middle is piston's at top dead center again. Exhaust valve is closing and the intake valve is open at that point. So three things are happening from top dead center to bottom dead center. Exhaust valve's closing, the intake valve is opening. Then the intake stroke happens and the intake valve is open during that intake stroke, and the intake valve doesn't actually close till 30 to 60 degrees after bottom dead center. So 30 to 60 degrees during the compression stroke, or after the compression stroke starts, is when the intake valve closes. That's why we phase cams. If we advance the intake valve, we're closing the intake valve sooner in the compression stroke. We're going to build more pressure. We also retard cam, the exhaust cam, for when we're phasing, we generally retard the exhaust cam. When we retard the exhaust cam, we're delaying the exhaust valve open. So would we agree during the power stroke, that's when the power is happening. The combustion pushes that piston down, that's what drives the car. If you open that exhaust valve later during that power stroke, you take advantage of more of that power stroke. So that's one reason. We have many reasons we phase cams. One reason we retard the exhaust cam and we advance the intake cam again, because the intake valve will close sooner in that compression stroke. Lots of really cool stuff that you'll see in this. This is a cranking compression capture. It looks quite a bit different when it's running. Because it's cranking, the pressure in the intake is about the same as it is atmosphere, so you're not seeing a lot of change take place right here. But when it's running, that we would agree generally you'll have 20 inches of mercury or negative 10 psi in the intake. So you'll see this drop down. It'll be at atmosphere. During the exhaust stroke, it should be at atmosphere, unless you have an exhaust restriction, or unless the exhaust valve opens too early. If the exhaust valve opens too early during the exhaust stroke, you'll see this pressure come up, or if the exhaust valve is not opening at all, you'll see a third peak right here, right in the middle. The exhaust valve didn't open if you have a third peak right here. If you have an exhaust valve that's opening or opening and closing a little bit too early, it closes a little too early in the exhaust stroke, you'll see a bump up toward the end of the exhaust stroke. That's valve timing. You'll see valve timing. So because we can see on running, you can see more. because we can see when the exhaust valve opens and we can see where the intake valve closes, and we can verify timing based off of that. There's many things you can do with this. It's really cool stuff. Brandon Steckler teaches an 8-hour pressure transducer class. I recommend you guys get really good with your scopes, and then once you're really confident with your scopes, then you can take some pressure transducer classes. It's pretty badass stuff.
So if you saw like an exhaust restriction, what would you expect to see on a cranking compression check?
You might not see it as much cranking compression.
Unless you saw it running, have to see it running.
Cranking, it certainly should be atmospheric. If it's really, really bad at restriction, you will see that whole exhaust stroke be elevated off of the atmosphere.
Okay.
But you may not see it at idle. It may mean running it or even sometimes power braking it to see it. If you think about it, if it depends on the degree of exhaust restriction. You may have an exhaust restriction that's just giving you a low power complaint or wide open throttle. So you might have to power brake it in order to see that exhaust elevate. And again, sometimes it comes into knowing what no good is, because cars are changing so much that, and also if it's a forced induction car, if it's a turbocharger car, that turbo may have some normal exhaust restriction. It may do something. So it has to do with, a lot of this stuff has to do with known goods. Traditionally speaking, there's some rule of thumbs that you can use with this that can diagnose just about anything.
Just a lot of variables.
There's more with modern cars. For years and years and years, you could do the rough rule of thumbs worked across the board. There's just some, with really, really late model cars, stuff has changed a little bit.